Okay. Can anyone hear me? Just to do confirmation before we proceed. We are just running late because some guys didn't get the link. I'm not sure how. Okay. Okay. Okay, let's see. Okay. Okay, I hope everyone grabbed some coffee because we are starting now. Okay, so okay, so I'm starting now. Hi everyone, my name is Glenn Zime, and I'm the Azure specialist here at Rectron. So in today's webinar, we are going to discuss migrating an existing SQL database into Azure SQL. So if you can't hear me still, just please send through your message through the live chat. And then with myself, I have Kamu. He's our RCT support specialist. He'll be handling our chat as well for today. So to reintroduce myself again, on my previous session, I did certified solutions architect expert. I'm also a charter member for Cloud Platform and Infrastructure, a specialist in Azure Infrastructure Solutions. So I have over 5 years of experience in cloud technologies, mainly in automation and private and public cloud deployments. Also, I'm an IT pro and a dev, so I'm 2 in 1. So should you need any help with development and or IT pro, just get in touch with myself and I'll be able to assist you. Okay, so in today's session, takeaway objective, we have to know and understand the positioning and the key benefits of running inside a SQL database platform inside Azure. Okay, so now currently we are having SQL Server on-premise, and now your offering in Azure would be the equivalent of Azure SQL databases, which is an enterprise grade database as a service platform. so which is easily accessible, secure, and highly available database solution. So now moving right along, we have the continuum of the Microsoft SQL platform, whereby now you are checking against the cost and administration. To run the SQL Server on-prem on a raw iron, as of current, what partners and customers are doing is they buy a server hardware, a chassis, install Windows Server 2012 or 2016 or 2019, buy a SQL license with CALs, install the SQL on the platform, on the hardware, and then have an administrator who will be doing actually the administration. Now, as you can see from the bottom left, there is higher administration and higher costs running on-prem. And obviously, you know there is a scalability issue. What do I mean by scalability issue? Each and every time the SQL database needs more performance, the IT administrators, they have to now increase capacity in order to meet the demand. So now, currently also, we have moved to virtual environments whereby we are running SQL on virtual machines. Now, this one is an approach which we are trying to offload the computing power of the one bare metal and actually optimize it to run multiple instances of the SQL Server. So still that approach, well, we are still trying to lower the cost because it's a shared model. And also there is a bit of lower administration. Now, with the birth of infrastructure as a service, this is where now we are seeing VMs being deployed in a cloud environment. So as in now, Microsoft also have a database as a service and infrastructure as a service. So with the infrastructure as a service, it's taking the whole virtual machine or the whole physical machine and put it as a virtual machine inside Microsoft Azure's data center. So what you are doing is Microsoft will take care of the hardware for you, the uptime of the hardware. You yourself, you'll be taking care of the OS level, going up to the application stack and also the platform. Now, going up the last layer, which is platform as a service, this is where now you just consume the application stack, the hardware, the virtual machine is being managed and maintained by Microsoft. So you don't need to worry about downtime. You don't need to worry about scale. So you basically purchase what you think will best suit your environment. Now, as we can see now, we are here up there at the platform as a service. And also with Azure, we have SQL database, which is what I'm going to cover today. However, there is also Azure SQL managed instances. So the managed instances, this is where now you want your physical hardware to be imitated in Azure, your own network and your own security policies so that no one can share the same platform with you. But the startup will be your Azure SQL database. So it gives you an enterprise elastic scale and performance, business continuity, it's there built into the platform and the data protection. And it's familiar to you. I mean, using the same tools you've been using. Also, you can scale up and down, in and out, and you have nice metrics on your dashboard to view how your SQL database is performing. Also, you can use your APIs. So you can use your APIs to manage this platform. You can use familiar tools and languages, as you will see on my demo. So you are not locked into using what Microsoft is providing you. You can still use your own tools. And for guys who are running Oracle databases, Postgre, and also MySQL can also migrate into the Azure SQL databases. So now moving right along. Now this is how the scaling works in Microsoft Azure SQL databases. So what's happening now is you have the basic SKUs, you have the standard SKU, and you have the premium SKU. So now on the basic SKU, it's measured based on the database transaction units, the DTUs, and also the DTUs. It's a metric or a ratio between the CPU IOs and then also your memory as well. So with the basic 5 DTUs, they're giving you a certain number of computation power of certain metric and also for memory. So if you increase the CPU based on the DTUs, you also increase the memory and the IOs. Also, the scaling up and down can be done through APIs, PowerShell, or T-SQL. And also what you can do is your database can be scaled up while your workload is running. And also it works on hourly billing, which also improves the cost efficiency. So now if it happens that you are running a front-end SQL application, which will need the scaling to be automated, you can also use it here on Azure SQL database. So a perfect example will be Takealot. You know that their website during Black Friday, again, it gets some spikes. So during that spiking moment, you can now scale up from one DTU level to the next. And if the demand goes down, now the traffic becomes less, it can scale down to avoid overcharging. So this is what the platform offers. And as always, I'll be covering also what is today's challenge. We have to have a challenge because we are trying to ensure that this is as practical as possible. And again, I will ask for apologies to all of you who love slides because this is more of a hands-on session. I want to tackle the real life scenarios which you will undergo in terms of migrating SQL databases into Azure. Now, here's our today's problem. A customer has a line of business application that is running on SQL Server 2016, which is on-prem, obviously. So they are currently having a capacity and scale issue as their hardware is starting to age. So basically now they are getting more customers, which is more money for them, but their hardware can accommodate the influx or the growth of the connections they're experiencing. So always they'll have to now create clusters, and that's a lot of money to spend. Now, the head of IT has tasked or asked you as their reseller to migrate their SQL database in a simple and cost-effective manner into Azure. So now what you will need also to do is to demonstrate the security capabilities and platform functionalities of using Azure SQL databases. So now what we are doing is we are now unlocking and unpacking the value of running Azure SQL databases compared to its predecessor of Azure SQL or SQL Server on-prem. Now I'll dive into my demo environment. And then my demo environment, it will obviously entail on what we are going to cover today. So what I'll do is I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So here on my screen, basically I have, so I'll just share my entire screen. It's okay. And then I'll just minimize everything here. So we have an Azure, okay. So let me just rather reshare this with you guys because I see you can't see anything. So I want to share my screen. Okay. So, okay, so it's fine, 100%. So we are having my environment, which is I'm having a SQL database server, which is running in Azure, but just for the fact of imitating an on-prem SQL server. So this can be your typical on-prem SQL server. I'm running SQL Server 2017 inside there, I believe so, yeah. And then it's basically, this is the smallest VM you can run SQL on, but I highly advise you to have a bit of more CPU and memory to accommodate the traffic. So yeah, and also here we do have Azure SQL databases, which I will cover. And logging into my SQL database environment, so it's running inside this virtual machine. So I have SQL Server Management Studio opened here. So on inside my SQL Management Studio, so this will be our on-prem server. And obviously, my application is so unique. Most of you, it will be the first time to see such. As I told you, I'm both a dev guy and the IT pro. So I've written a PowerShell application, which is piping through data inside the orders table. So basically, if I do my select query, so I'll say select from orders, that's my table. And then I'll execute this query. So if I execute, as you can see, I'm having my application, which is piping through line item. What is the date captured? What is the city? So my company or my client has multiple branches all over South Africa. So you see there is Bloemfontein, Durban, Nelson Mandela Bay, and Cape Town. And these are the amounts basically of the captured sales. Now, my nice and interesting application, which is actually running here on my machine, this is the one. So I'm having this application, which I've written using PowerShell. PowerShell is a language which was developed by Microsoft, and it runs on all platforms and all machines using Windows 10, Windows 7. So basically, I've created a function which will get my current date, capture it into my container variable, date captured. I've created an array of cities. So these are cities which will be rotating amongst randomizing. And obviously, I have my get random command, which is taking my city and randomizing. And for each value which it selects, like my lottery application, so you can take it as a lotto application just to randomize these values, captures them into city. I'm also randomizing my sales using minimum of 50 rands and maximum of 5,000 rands. And also I have my connection string here to connect into my database and my query here. So this is my query, my insert statement. So I'm inserting the date captured city and the total order amount as these values captured on my above variables. Then I will now invoke the SQL query using the invoke SQL command. This is using PowerShell. If you are using a C# or PHP or HTML, you are welcome to use it. So my application is running on PowerShell for the sake of the demo. And then also, I've created a loop. So for every 5 seconds, it will run this function, which will insert the data into my database. So right now, it is pointing to my on-prem server. And if I run the whole of this, so I'll right click and run selection. Down here, you'll actually see now it will make a call into my database. So it is calling my database with whatever the query. So these are the values being inserted now into my on-prem SQL database. So now going back to my SQL database inside my management studio, I will just do something just to prove that this is working. So I will modify my query and say count. So I'll perform a count of rows. So I'll call it as count, as let's say, okay. So I'm running this. So for you guys who know SQL language, great for you. If you don't, do not worry. This is just for the sake of demo. So you can see now we are sitting at 183 insertions. If I execute again, now it's 185. If I do again, 186. So you can see now my application, it's piping through the data inside the Azure environment. Now it's 187. So these branches are all putting data into this SQL server. As you can see, now we are going at around 190 values. So, which is perfectly fine. But now there is a problem with this server, the capacity issue. There is a capacity issue. So if I check on my task manager and check on my performance, obviously you can see there are times where it spikes to 100%, which can be an issue. And also in terms of memory, we are so worried in a case that we get a spike from one branch or from multiple branches. So right now we are sitting at 195, so it's still working. Now, going into my Azure environment, The first thing we'll have to do now is we have to create an Azure SQL database. Now, coming into SQL databases, I've pre-configured this database up front, but just to show you how it's done, you click the add button. Now, when you click add, obviously you'll be greeted by a wizard where you'll have to select your database name. I'll say AZ demo. Then you'll have to create a new server. I'll just say create new server. So this is where you create the server. You put the server name, the server login and password, and the location of that server. So it's advisable to put your SQL server in the South African region to avoid latency. So now I've pre-created the server here, and also you can configure your database SKU. So if I click configure database, you will see now we have basic, standard, and premium. Now you'll see the basic, you have like 5 DTUs, which gives you 100 from 100 to 2 gig. So this is for small workloads for testing mainly. And then we have the standard one, which you can scale from 0 or 10 DTUs up to 3,000 DTUs. So just go and read more about database transaction units, but this is a metric between the CPU and the memory, which you are allocated in Azure. And the maximum you can have on standard is 250 gig. For premium, these are more for more IO intensive applications. You can do up to 1 terabyte, but should you need more, then you will need to use a vCore model. So a vCore model can also scale. You can also extend your database storage using storage accounts in Azure. But for now, you'll be looking at using the basic or standard one. So just start your customers small, check the performance, how it's performing, and then after you can bump it up. Now, going back to my pre-configured SQL database here, as you can see, I've created it. Nothing. It's just empty. There is no utilization. I'll speak more on these features after the migration. But now, what I need to do now is I need to download what we call Azure Database Migration Assistant. Now, this is the tool which you as partners will be using in order to perform assessments and migrations. Now, for more advanced migrations, you use Azure SQL Database Service, Migration Service. Now, the service, it allows you to move the databases in real time without any downtime, okay? Without any downtime. So you'll be moving your SQL databases while your customers are transacting into the Azure SQL. Now, as soon as they are in sync, then you can now switch your applications to point to the Azure SQL database. So this will take some time because it has a lot of moving parts. You still have to deploy a VPN gateway, connect your SQL databases to that VPN connection, so that you will be able to now speak to that Azure SQL database in Azure. So for today's demo, I'm using the Microsoft Data Migration Assistant, which is a free tool to download. You don't need to pay anything for it. So to get started, I'm going to create a new, so if you hit the plus sign, you have an option to do an assessment or a migration. The first one, I'll say maybe customer X migration. So customer X migration, we are migrating from what? From either AWS or SQL Server. We are migrating from SQL Server to an Azure SQL database, or you have an option to migrate it to a database managed instance, which is the platform Azure gives you like a dedicated machine, but they manage it for you. Or you can manage it, you can migrate it into Azure SQL Server on Azure VM machine. So you'll have a virtual machine, which you will manage, and it will have SQL on it. Or you can migrate it to the other SQL databases, maybe from on-prem to on-prem. So I'm using Azure SQL database. I will create. Now, what the test will do is they will check the compatibility and the feature parity. Remember now, what happens is there can be a compatibility issue due to the schema, so the structure of your database, and also the technology you are using. So when I hit next here, I'll have to specify my local machine or my SQL server, which I'll need to use as my on-prem. So what I'll do is I'll just head back here, go into my Azure. I'll just take the IP address of my SQL server. So in this case, it will be your on-prem server. And then now I'll head back here. And then I'll put in my IP address. I'm using SQL Server Authentication. Then now I'll just disable encryption for now, but on a live environment, it's advisable to use encryption. So now you'll see now it picks up my table orders. So I'll have to select that and add, and then I'll hit start assessment. You'll actually see it shows you the compatibility level. Okay, it's actually even showing you on what SQL platform am I running. So now what it will do, it will perform the assessment, and then upon assessing your database, now it will give you what are the problems. Now we are having issues with the feature parity. Now in Azure SQL databases, you can't move your connection broker. That's number one. The feature is not supported here. Unless you move it to a managed instance, it is supported. The Azure SQL database doesn't support SQL analysis services, which you do your OLP processing. This one is not doesn't support. If you want to do that, you will have to migrate to Azure SQL managed instances. Also, the reporting services on this one, it's not supported. So you'll have to also move to SQL managed instances or a SQL server on a VM if you're having compatibility issues. So, okay, if I'm happy, I can export this report. So you can hit export, then you'll be done. Now, going back now, I would now want to perform a migration. So I'll click on migration. I'll name it migration customer X. From what server? From my SQL on-prem to my Azure SQL databases. And what am I trying to move? I'm trying to move the schema and the data contained inside the database. Or you can do data only or schema only. So now if I hit create, now I'll have to mention my source server, which is my on-prem server, and then I'll have to sign into it, and then I can hit connect. You can see it picks up my database, and then when you hit next here, I have to specify my SQL server name, my Azure SQL database connection details. Now I'll have to head back into my Azure environment, select here. So this is my server name, Azure Thursday.database.windows.net. You are able to import your own domain name as well. So I'm coming here into here, copy paste. Now I'll put in my password as well. And then I'll hit connect, and it picks up the RIS Azure SQL DB. So you can see the compatibility level on this one is 140. So the difference is 10, which is not bad at all. And then next, I'll have to select what do I want to move. So it's preparing my object. I want to move my DBO orders. So I'm moving my orders table. And then it will generate a SQL script. This SQL script, it will be used to be, it will be deployed inside the SQL in Azure. So you can see it generated your schema. So it will create this, and after then it will now move your data into Azure. So I'll click deploy schema. It is done. That's how fast it was to deploy the schema inside the Azure SQL database. Upon deploying the schema, now you can migrate the data. The data from which table? From this table. Currently, we are sitting at this 310 row count. Now it says ready to move. Okay. Now I can hit start migration. Depending on the amount of data you are having, how big is your database, it can take some time. But you can see mine, because it is a very small database, It took just under a second to migrate everything. Now, just to confirm if my database migrated into Azure, coming back into my SQL in Azure database, clicking here, this is a new and preview feature which Azure provides you, which is the query editor. Now, the query editor, you are able to run your SQL queries live on the platform without connecting and disconnecting from your machines. Okay. So now, what I can do here now is I can sign in and actually check my tables. You will actually see here that under my tables, I will get my DBO orders. So what I can do now is, what I can do from here now is I can perform my SQL query here. So I can select star from my orders table. Then I can run the query. So this is executing the query against my Azure SQL database. As you can see, here is the output of the data which has been migrated into Azure, and it just took under 4 seconds. That's how fast it was. And also we can perform the count. So, and perform the count. So I want to count how many records are inside this database. So as we can see here, it is 313, which is fairly the amount which we're expecting. Now, the final thing which I'll have to do now is I'll have to now switch my connection from this on-prem server into my cloud server. So what I'll need to do now is I'll have to now change my connection string. So coming back to my database overview, here's my server name. Coming back into my application. So instead of pointing to my on-prem server, I just change here and point it to my Azure server. And then also my database, its name is Azure SQL. Azure SQL. Okay, so that's all I've changed. So my database name is Azure SQL here. Azure SQL, that's it here. So that's what I changed. I changed just 2 things because I'm using the same login details. So what I'll do is I'll now execute my application again. Now, this time around, it's no longer pointing to my on-prem server, it's pointing to the cloud. I'm expecting an error here, which is a nice security feature. So now this error actually, okay, let me just see, or I've already added, but the error which you're gonna get initially is the firewall will block you by default. Okay, so coming back here under overview, you have to actually set up the server firewall to allow the connection. So I've already allowed myself. It's just mere by clicking add client IP from here, and then what you would do is you will now see it populating here. Or you can also say this VPN or this network is only allowed to speak to this database. So this is a nice security feature which you are having inside Microsoft Azure SQL databases. So coming back to my application, you can see now there is inserting of data. The users are continuing working. The day is fine. They do not even know that they are already piping data into Azure. Going back to my Azure database, what I can do from now is I can now execute the same query from my query editor. Okay, so I'll use this existing database password. Now I'll execute the same. We were sitting at 330. I can confirm, Kamut. Yes. Okay. So now I'll do a select as well. Select count function. So I will count everything from my orders table, and then I'll run. And actually, you will see that we are having now 334. Now, if I continuing running my my query, you will see now from 334, the number should increase to 336. That means now my application, it is now piping all the data into the Azure SQL databases, which is great. How simple was that to move the Azure database from on-prem into the cloud? So now, coming back to the features, if you have any questions, guys, We have a chat which is opened. I have Kamu here to also take some questions. Should you have any questions in regards to Azure SQL databases? Now, moving right along, what I can see from here is I can see the compute utilization across different time frames. Now, as you can see now, since we were performing some migration, you will see now I was hitting 6% comparing to my 100% spike, which I had on-prem. And you can see as well down here, you are getting some configurations, enable TDE, transparent data encryption, to encrypt your backups or your databases on rest and logs from your on-prem machine to your Azure database. You can do database tuning, which whereby data Azure will monitor your data should you want to. If it's a security risk, do not proceed. So what it will do, it will tune and optimize your database. If you want to protect your database from disaster by creating secondaries in other regions, you can select geo-replication. And right now, I can select any region on the map, the region I want to use. So you can see currently we are running on South Africa North. I can say, okay, my target region, I would want it to fail over to North Europe. And actually what it will do is it will set up a SQL server in North Europe and mirror the two. So if you are used to SQL databases, this feature is like SQL always on cluster. So whereby all the databases are mirrored and actually provide uptime and high availability. So now going back, so this is where you set up your uptime and your disaster recovery. So, okay, coming back here, then you can also see the features of auditing. You can trace and dynamic data masking. This is a nice feature whereby if you are having sensitive data and you wouldn't want these guys to be able to see things like PIN codes, credit card numbers, you would add mask here, and actually you would mask a certain column here. Like I would maybe if it was PIN or credit card number, you would mask it. So you know the masking, the dot dot dot, when you're putting something sensitive, it writes dot dot dot. So that's how you do it in Azure. And then you would see you can select formats and default values, like it will hide actually with some X's here. Then what you do, you click on add, then it will now add the mask, and then after you will save. So it will save the data. So the dynamic data masking. So these are default features which you get with the platform. So these are the selling points we should take advantage of. So let me just try to reconnect and see if I'm the privileged user. But if just any other users try to actually view the data, actually it has to stop them from doing so. Let me say select everything from orders. So if they are piping through the data back to their application, they shouldn't see those values if they're just standard users. So you'll say, okay, I'm a privileged user, so it didn't hide them, didn't mask them. But actually it should show like star, 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 dot, 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 in order to hide the values. So if I go back to my SQL databases, so now everything is running smoothly. And then going down the feature set, you have also connection strings. So if you are using your applications, it's nice that it gives you your connection string to use on your application. The only thing you put here is the username and the password. Done. If you're using JDBC, this is how you do it. If you're doing ODBC, and if you're doing PHP as well, it writes you nice PHP code. All you modify is the username and the password from here. So it will do your try catch. So if there is an error or whatever, and then it can be able to validate that for you. What is nice also is you can sync to the other databases. So you can create a sync group. So basically you are syncing from one server to the next. Basically you are having two Azure databases. You can create sync groups, and also you can include Azure Search. So Azure Search basically works like like a search which you can embed on your application in order to search data quicker. And if I hit my properties here, basically this is the status of what database queue am I using, what is the pricing tier, and also the connection strings, I can view them from here. And also if I configured Active Directory admin to use Active Directory authentication, you can do it from here. And as well, you can do those features we just spoke about in terms of advanced data security, data masking, transparent data encryption. We can do those from here. Now, this is the nice part about Azure SQL databases. We can do performance overviews. So we can do activities, tuning activities. So basically, if you have enabled the auto tuning, it will do this for you. Performance recommendation, obviously it will always recommend the best practices on your database. You can also automate this automatic tuning, okay? So you can create like indexes. Database guys would know this. So you can create indexes from the server if you have, or you can use the Azure defaults, or it mustn't inherit anything. And also you can check how fast is the query. So you can do query insights. So if you are like right now we are having queries piping from our application. So these are the queries. So you can now check the insights on how fast are they ingesting the data. So you can see now they are using just about 0.27. And also what we can also check is recommendation. I can check in terms of the data IO, and then also you can check based on the logs, the SQL logs. So you can also check from here, and you can also customize this. So this is a nice graph where you can check based on certain days. Can check from here. I mean, obviously this would need you to have something which is running continuously. Okay, so you have to run this continuously in order to have that nice rich data from here. And also you can do automatic tuning from here or from there. So it is nice to have multiple ways to get to the same feature. And also you can do metrics. I mean, Azure metrics, it's still part of Azure SQL databases. So from the VMs, you can still view these. So you can also view the percentage of your CPU. You can check your IOs, how many blocked connections by your firewall. You can check your data IO percentage at what we are doing right now. So I'm not actually doing anything in Azure, even if I'm piping quite a lot of data, but I'm just scratching the surface of the earth. Also the DTU limit, at what am I hitting in terms of my DTUs. This will tell me actually that, okay, no, my application can't handle very well, so I have to scale up. So you can check all these, like the DTU percentage, what percentage am I using in terms of my DTUs. So these are all the features you can be able to take advantage of in terms of running SQL database in Azure. So right now, I want to take questions from you guys. I'm happy to take questions on or any recommendations or any comments you have here in these last few minutes we have. So guys, in terms of pricing, what we can do is we can check using the pricing calculator. Okay, so we can do the Azure pricing calculator just to show you the pricing of running Azure solution. So basically you come to your calculator, hit databases, Azure SQL database. That's how you add your estimate. Now, obviously you would select South Africa North. Okay. So under South Africa North, here under type, you have either an elastic pool. That means you are running multiple databases on one server. They are all sharing the same performance. Or you can do managed instance. This is whereby you are having your own instance of SQL, which is the exact SQL on-prem. It's the exact mirror of your on-prem SQL. So if you have compatibility issues using SQL single database, please use managed instance. Now, obviously, we were using single database. The backup, we have the local redundant storage. That means the data is backed up inside the data center 3 times. Zone redundant, that means it's backed up 3 times between 2 regions. And we have read access geo redundant. That means it's replicating between South Africa and North Europe. And you have access to read only to your secondary database. So in a case your primary database goes down, your second database is ready to serve your requests. We have the pricing model, which is the V-core, which is based on number of cores. Guys who are doing volume licensing core model, you would understand the core V-core model. Basically, it's based on number of cores you'll be running your SQL. This one is good for customers who are already having the SQL license with software assurance. If they have software assurance on-prem, they can save up to 55% using Azure Hybrid Benefit for SQL Server. So this doesn't only apply for VMs, it also applies also on your SQL servers in Azure. So right now we are using the DTU model. So you have your basic tier. Actually, let me just change this to rent pricing to make more sense to us. Okay, so South Africa. So I'll come back here. So this is my basic, okay? And then also, I think there is something here which I've attached. Why is it showing me 23 grand? Let me just come up here. Okay, I've added quite a lot of estimates here. Okay, oh, my VPN gateway, okay. I'm sure some of you guys were screaming your lungs out in terms of the pricing. Sorry, it's just added on the previous quotes I was doing here online. So basically, we selected South Africa North. We selected single database, DTU. So for basic, where you are using just 2 gig for 30 days to backup an average retention of 5 gig, you can set up retentions here. It charges you 108.65 XVAT. Okay, so this is Microsoft online pricing. If you are a CSP partner, you have CSP pricing applying to you. So this is for dev guys. I mean, if a guy, your company wants a dev environment, I mean, this is the cheapest solution you can possibly have in order to test things out if they are ready to run in Azure. I highly suggest that have an internal Azure subscription. If I've said Azure subscription internal with CSP, get yourself an Azure SQL database, the smallest you can possibly have, and see whether your application or website, how will it perform comparing to the database you are using on-prem. So if I bump it up to standard, so from standard, which is 10 DTUs, which is 250 gig storage, it takes us to 326 rands and 87 cents XVAT. And then if you are looking into getting a performing one in terms of higher DTUs with 100 DTUs, we are actually looking at 3,266. So this one does perform quite good. So in your internal Azure subscriptions, this is where now you'll test. Remember, it's pay as you go. You're only charged for what you use. So if you test it for like an hour, you are just charged for an hour. So let me just check an hour rate. So this is what you are charged, an hour, 4.48 cents per hour. So hence, this is a good platform to try because you are just charged on what you use, not on what you have deployed and commissioned. So now going to the premium for guys who are really doing very high transactions on their databases, you'd want your database to be on a premium tier. Now for premium tier, to get started with 125 DTUs with 500 gig storage, an average of that. So, okay, this was for 1 hour. So we are doing at 733. So you are looking at a start of 10,166 rands and 71 cent XVAT. And then this is the start. So the biggest one, which is 4,000 DTUs. I believe Uber is running on this one. If you didn't know, Uber is running their entire solution in Azure, and they're using Azure SQL database to power their back end SQL server. So for 4,000 DTUs, monthly, we are looking at 349,823 and 3 cents ex-VAT per month. So I pray you guys, you get one of these guys who can actually provision this one. This is the fastest you can get, the fastest in Azure. I mean, if this is limiting you, you are welcome to come to managed instances. We don't have managed instances yet in South Africa, so I'll have to check on North Europe. And the basic one, which is the Gen 4 or the Gen 5, can use Gen 5 for 8 cores on your SQL. It takes you to 61 grand ex-VAT and 102 ex-VAT. So if you want to get the powerful one with 80 cores, this is when you're looking at 611,000 and 611,026.74 cents. So now this one will be a price of buying what, Kamu, per month? He's a fan of golfs and VW, so a Golf R will do for this one. But however, if your customer needs the latest and greatest, the most fastest you can ever have in Azure, just get them off with this price. If you get the PO, good for you. But for starters, single database, DTU, basic, then you are good to go. So you can scale up and down should needs be, okay? You can scale up and down if you need to do scaling. So I see my time is already up. I'm just checking on questions you might have. But anyway, this is how you would do migrating your SQL Server from on-prem into Azure. Just for interest's sake, I'll just check on how many records are we having now while we are waiting for questions. Okay, so I'm just logging back to my database. I'll just run my select with count. Okay. Okay, from so for partners, for CSP partners, you have Partner Center University. You also have Microsoft Learn, where you can learn about these Microsoft offerings and technologies for free. So it's actually great for you to upskill yourself every day so that you can actually take advantage of these opportunities and be able to upsell and cross-sell your solutions to your clients. So never be comfortable in cloud. The cloud always changes. Also for sales guys, I mean, just the basics of knowing what is a SQL, Azure SQL database is great. So never say I'm just selling, but just actually knowing how it works and in terms of the support or anything. So just get yourself upskilled. So on Partner University, there is training for sales, there is training for management and for IT pros, dev, there is training there. So for you to get access to Partner University, you need to be a CSP reseller and have an existing MPN ID for you to be able to take part in Partner University. And then, so right now I'm just going to stop my recording. We are awaiting questions. Should you have any questions? So I'll just stop my screen sharing here. Okay. Okay. So right now we are just awaiting any questions. So I will share my email address here on the chat. So it's glenty@retron.za. If you should need to get some quotations or have any other questions apart from what I've covered, you have these and also CC my colleagues mvl@retron.co.za to get a prompt response in terms of support. And then also you have Kamugelo, our support. So is Kamugelo s@retron.co.za. He is our support. So if you need anything from him, get in touch with him. We have Kamugelo and Tabiso. And so should you need any support, please get in touch with them. And also myself, I'm available also for architecture, reference architecture, design? Should you want advices on how to move what in the cloud? Should you also need us, if needs be, if there is a big opportunity, we can give you Azure credits for your end customer to try out the solution before committing in terms of financial commitment. So I see there's no questions coming through. That means, guys, you did understand everything. There is the Q&A open for you to post anything. And on my upcoming webinars, actually, we're gonna have some nice prizes so that you guys can have something as well. So I hope this session has been a benefit to you and your organization. Please note it was a recorded event. So should you need this recording after ending this meeting, you should have a download option there by your Teams meeting. If you can't, just get in touch with myself. I will share the link to you. If you have any other requests also, I will get in touch with myself and my team. So it was a lovely session. I hope you've enjoyed, and may you have a blessed Thursday and a wonderful weekend up front. So thank you.